What's up, everybody? I'm HoopsandHipHop, and welcome back to another episode of the Pokeblock Podcast. In last week's episode, we talked about the new mythical Pokemon that is going to be revealed at the end of the month for Pokemon Day, that is going to appear in both Pokemon Sword and Shield and the brand new Pokemon movie. Super exciting stuff, and today is going to be always interesting because, like I say, it's always an interesting episode here, but it's going to be kind of a different sort of discussion, I guess, because this particular week there isn't really like a hot off the press, like super current event type of thing that's gone on with Pokemon that we usually are fortunate enough to talk about here on the Pokeblock Podcast, because there's just always something major, it seems like, or at least there has always been something major going on in Pokemon lately, and that is unfortunately not the case this week. However, with that being said, there is something that did happen in terms of current events with Pokemon earlier this week, and that would be that Gigantamax Toxtricity was officially revealed and shown off, and I believe it is currently now available within the games for you to get. It's going to be available for about a month or so, and it's just like the Gigantamax Snorlax that was revealed and kind of released earlier in the year. I can't say earlier in the year because I don't think it was earlier in the year. It was last year. We're kind of in that weird point in the year where phrases like that get just mumbled up and ruined. But anyways, you guys get the picture. Gigantamax Toxtricity was officially revealed and released. We've known about this one for a while, pretty much since the games came out. It's one of those things that was within the data of the games that got data mined, so we got to know about it before it was officially out. And with Gigantamax Toxtricity in particular, it seemed like it had more going on with it because there is a lot of stuff within Pokemon Sword and Shield that lends to the idea that there's more going on with Toxtricity than meets the eye. You have these statues in Holbury that talk about how Toxtricity saved the lighthouse, but it never says from what or why or where or when or anything like that. It doesn't give you any details. And then the huge geoglyph on the turf-filled hill, the huge, it's basically like the hill figure, if you will. People have surmised, and if you look at that hill figure compared to Gigantamax Toxtricity, they're almost identical. So it seems like that hill figure is Gigantamax Toxtricity, and it seems like there was going to be a story to be told there. So that's why everyone was really, really interested in the reveal and eventual release of this Pokemon to see what it had in store. But before we get all into this discussion, I do have to say that this episode of the Pokeblock Podcast is proudly brought to you today by our sponsors. Our sponsors help support the show and help make it better, so they are very, very much appreciated. And today's episode is brought to you by the Tax Defense Group. Tax season is here, and that means it's time to file your taxes. There's good news though, because if you are a W-2 employee, you can save half off of your filing. All you have to do is call the Tax Defense Group before April 15th, 2020, and mention that you heard this ad on UCast Studios. Millions of Americans will get money back after they file, and you can be one of them. All you got to do is call the Tax Defense Group today at 800-850-7973. That number again is 800-850-7973, or you can visit them online at thetaxdefensegroup.com. This episode is also brought to you by Writer Junkie. Are you looking forward to making more money in 2020? Well, one of the best ways to do that is by having a new resume that can help you get that dream job. Writer Junkie offers affordable, well-written resumes for the low cost of just $145. They'll even throw in a cover letter for no additional charge, and all you have to do is mention that you heard this ad on UCast Studios, and they will go ahead and get right to work. So go ahead and call Writer Junkie today at 805-587-7966, and you can visit them as well online at writerjunkie.com. Alrighty, with all of that being said, let's go ahead and get into the discussion. Gigantamax Toxtricity, right? It seems like not only is it one of the few Gigantamax forms that was withheld from the game after its launch, so it's a post-launch Gigantamax form, but like I said, it seems like it's got more to it than meets the eye with the hill figure that looks exactly like it. You've got the Toxtricity statues. It seems like there's more to be had there, and that's why people were really looking forward to the release of this Gigantamax form. Well, so far, the announcement was made yesterday at the time of this recording, I believe, and so far it doesn't seem like there's anything to be had in terms of story. They didn't even make a video for it on the Pokemon YouTube channel. channel. They did on the Japanese YouTube channel, just not the American one, at least not one that's come out yet. We could get one that comes out like a day after the fact or something. Either way, though, it doesn't seem like it's super pressing to them. It doesn't seem like it's super important. And on the website, it doesn't really specify any like lore type of stuff. It just kind of gives some information on Toxtricity's background and the Gigantamax form's background. It doesn't really give you any like story elements that might be related to this hill figure or these statues that we kind of thought might happen. So that part of it is kind of disappointing, I will say, because it seemed like there was something there for the taking, and who knows, maybe something will eventually be there for the taking, but right now it doesn't seem apparent, which, yeah, like I said, kind of sad, kind of disappointing, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. However, the reason why I wanted to bring up Gigantamax Toxtricity and talk about this in this episode of the podcast in the first place is because it is a prime example of how Pokemon Sword and Shield is just absolutely just slaying the game. Like, it is absolutely kicking butt with its post-launch content. If you guys haven't noticed yet, Pokemon Sword and Shield has been a pretty active game in terms of the post-launch content scene. In this day and age in 2020, you get, obviously, post-launch content is nothing new. Like, keeping a game alive, quote unquote, is nothing new. And you see it in a lot of games, like online games. Obviously, you have Fortnite, different things like that. There's just like, basically, depending on the type of game you're playing, you might have a game that is constantly updating itself to add new content and stuff like that, which is really cool, and it's really cool that Pokemon Sword and Shield has adopted that kind of style. However, there are a couple things I want to talk about in the case of Pokemon Sword and Shield specifically with this idea. Number one is the fact that, like I said, it's doing an amazing job. There have been countless like giveaways, like distributions through mystery gifts to give people battle points and items and different things like that to allow them to basically like build up competitive teams essentially, and it also gives them incentive to do the battle tree and do like in-game battles, which is really cool. And then you have all of these Gigantamax Pokemon events that have been happening basically since the game has been launched. You have the new ones that have came out, like Snorlax and Toxtricity, that is sometimes a hard name to say, that were released after the games came out, so obviously that's exciting. And then you have other ones that like were already within the game, like Colossal or Appleton, for instance, that become more common to be found at any given point in time just based on an event that Game Freak and the Pokemon Company want to do for a specific period of time. And I just think that idea of always having something that is going on within the game, whether it's a Gigantamax form that can be more commonly found or a brand new Gigantamax form that's in the game, I think, or the mystery gifts events even that are giving you stuff, I think that is just so absolutely phenomenal because it gives people a reason to go back to the game. Like, you obviously, like, you play the game, you enjoy it, you beat it, and then once you beat the main story of the game, it's kind of up to you to decide how, like, it kind of depends on how you play Pokemon as to whether or not you're really going to go back. If you shiny hunt, you're probably going to keep playing Pokemon. If you're a competitive battler, you're probably going to keep playing Pokemon, but that, like, not everyone is a shiny hunter or competitive battler, so everyone might not have a reason to go and obviously go back to the game after they've beaten it. And I really just like the fact that Game Freak is doing all of these events, these activities, that gives people a reason to hop back into the game. And I think the whole concept of Gigantamax Pokemon, which Gigantamax Pokemon is kind of, they're kind of a double-edged sword, because while I think it is really, really cool to be able to go hunt them out and find them, and you have to track them down, and they're rare, like, I really love that idea. I really love it a lot. But it is kind of disappointing from a perspective of only the specific Pokemon, like the specific version of the Pokemon that you find in the wild that can Gigantamax, like those are the only ones that can Gigantamax. So for example, if I have a Toxtricity, my Toxtricity is not going to be able to Gigantamax, even though Toxtricity has a Gigantamax form, because I have to go find a specific Toxtricity that can Gigantamax in order to be able to have that option. So that part of it does suck, but I really, really, really love the fact that you have to go hunt them out. I think that is really cool, and I think they made it this way so they could do something like this, where they could have these events where they're constantly putting them out and constantly doing different activities, so people always have a reason to go out and hunt them and things like that. I think that is definitely a nod that has been taken from Pokemon Go, because Pokemon Go is always having obviously like raid events, and you have like community days and different things like that that get people out of like, it gets them to play when they might otherwise not be playing on a specific day, and I think they're definitely taking a note from that, and it's working out perfectly. I think it's awesome. I think just that constant support is just really cool, that constant like thing that's going on in the game that can give you a bonus or just something to do that's fun. Like, not to say that you can't still play the game without any of these events and have fun, because you absolutely can. Like I said, there's shiny hunting, there's competitive battling, there's a bunch of different stuff. There's filling the Pokedex, but in terms of just like having those activities, I think it is phenomenal. And it's only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Pokemon's post-launch content, and that's why I'm talking about it today, because it's so just unbelievably phenomenal the way they are doing it. The other point I wanted to get back to, though, before we kind of move on to the next thing, is that, like I said, there are a lot of games that do post-launch content, but usually the games that do it kind of the way that Pokemon are doing it are mostly online type of games, like your Call of Duties, your Fortnites especially. You have PUBG, you have Splatoon even from the Nintendo side. Like these games that heavily rely on an online community and for the most part are online only, these are the games that are usually using this format. They're using this style, and that's because they kind of have to. As a game that can only function for the most part online, you're immediately, from the birth of the game, giving it a limited window before it is dead in the water and can literally no longer be played. Like, I mean, I'm not a Fortnite guy, but when Fortnite Season 2 or Fortnite 2 or whatever it is came out, they made the first Fortnite literally unplayable. So, like, as far as I'm aware, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, like, Fortnite 1 is, like, you can't play that anymore. Or even, like, Splatoon 1, while I'm pretty sure the servers are still there so you could still play, who are you going to find to play with anymore? Like, Splatoon 1, as popular as it was, that game has been out for several years, and people have moved on to the Switch, they've moved on to Splatoon 2, and if you're a person that just for whatever reason can't get a Switch right now, can't get Splatoon 2, and you're stuck with Splatoon 1, well, you are going to have to be forced to just cross your fingers and hope that when you connect online that there's going to be 7 other people that just so happen to be on as well that want to play, which could happen, but the longer we go forward and the more time there is between the launch of Splatoon 1, for instance, and the current day, the less likely it's going to be that you're going to be able to have that consistent like access and playability on an online game like that. So that is the reason why these online games have to do this sort of thing, because they kind of have to offset the fact that their game is very limited in terms of its like window of opportunity. That's one of the reasons why I'm personally not a fan of online games at all, but that is not what we're talking about. That's a subject for another day. With that being said, though, that's like another key reason why I think Pokemon Sword and Shield is absolutely kicking butt, because they are implementing this online-only strategy in terms of post-launch content in a game that is largely single-player and offline. Like, there are obviously a lot of online elements to Pokemon Sword and Shield, and there's a lot of things that you can do when connected to it, and with multiplayer as well. But the primary like core of Pokemon Sword and Shield, as with every Pokemon game, is the single player offline experience. That is what Pokemon, that's why you buy Pokemon Sword and Shield. No, I mean, there might be a couple of people that buy Pokemon Sword and Shield just for shiny hunting, just for competitive battling, don't care about the story, but like 90% of the people are buying the game so they can play through that story, so they can play through that single player offline experience. And to couple a game like that is rooted in that kind of like system, like that kind of style of game, and coupling that with an online like game type of content strategy, that's honestly a match made in heaven. And I don't claim to play every single game that's out there in the world, but I genuinely cannot think of another game. I know that Kirby Star Allies on the Nintendo Switch did this sort of thing where they provided a bunch of like bonuses and content to like make the game better or whatever after the launch, but I can't think of a whole lot of games otherwise that are rooted in a single player experience but constantly give you more content as if they're an online game with that limited window. And I think personally that is phenomenal. I think that is so good, and it's one of just the many reasons why Pokemon is hitting it out of the park, or Sword and Shield I should say is hitting it out of the park with what they are doing post-launch of the game and how they are supporting the game post-launch. And it's not even the tip of the iceberg, as I said, but before we get into that really quick, I just want to shout out the Tax Defense Group again. Be sure to check them out for all your tax needs at thetaxdefensegroup.com or by calling 800-850-7973. You can also check out Writer Junkie if you need that on-point resume for your next dream job. Be sure to contact them at 805-587-7966 or at writerjunkie.com. But with that being said, moving on to the next reason why Pokemon Sword and Shield is killing the game in this category is because, like I said, everything I just mentioned in terms of the constant activities and events and things that are going on, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because obviously the next big thing that Pokemon is doing in terms of after the launch is the expansions. We're getting 2 huge expansions to this game. Granted, you do have to pay for them. It's not like the other stuff that you just get it for free, like just as a form of constant support, but this is a big deal. We are getting 2 huge expansions to this game that is going to be updating the game tremendously. There's going to be new story, new characters, new legendaries, new areas to go through. Both of the areas that we are getting access to are going to be wild areas, so they're going to be completely seamless, and I assume they're going to be like significantly sized as well because of that. So there is so much to look forward to in those expansions, and it just speaks to the incredible amount of support that they are giving this game. And like, even if you don't buy the expansions because they are paid DLC, because you do have to pay for them to get access to them, you're still going to be able to benefit from their presence anyway, because one of the things that they are bringing are 200 plus Pokemon that weren't in the game originally into the game. And even if you don't have Pokemon, even if you don't have the expansions, you're going to be able to get access to those Pokemon through an update that will allow you to obtain them in the game via trades or via transferring or something like that. So like, you're still going to have something to benefit even if you don't buy the expansions. But honestly, if you bought the game, you might as well buy the expansions regardless, because you're getting 2 of them for $30. It is an incredibly affordable price for what you are getting, because it's essentially half of the cost of what a third enhanced version would have been that we are used to. And it's adding infinitely more than a game like that would have been, or historically has added in the past with games like Platinum or Emerald, or not Black and White 2, because Black and White 2 is a little bit different, but you guys get the idea. Basically, it's adding way more than those type of games that these expansions are emulating usually do, which is just another phenomenal part of it. And another really great part of it that is a part of the expansion, but also seems to be going like even further past that as well, is the fact that we're getting new Pokemon with it. We've already got the presence of 3 new legendaries. We're getting more Galarian forms. Who knows? We might even get like new regular Pokemon as well. And we don't know at this point whether or not it is specifically a part of the expansion or just coming to Sword and Shield in general as well. But as I said at the beginning of the podcast, we're getting a new mythical Pokemon as well. Like, name me another Pokemon game that is just absolutely dumped an avalanche of content like this on us after the actual game came out. Let's listen for a second. yeah, I'm not hearing anything because the answer is that Pokemon game doesn't exist. There's never been another Pokemon game that has added this much content post-launch as Pokemon Sword and Shield did. And I know if you're a critic of Pokemon Sword and Shield, you're probably going to say something along the lines of, well, that's because it should have been in the game anyway. Like, it should have been there from the start. And to be honest with you, I gotta say, while really, this just comes down to a matter of opinion. Even if that is your very strong opinion that you believe this stuff should have been in the game in the first place, that's what you believe. That is not a legitimate fact. Because personally, in my opinion, I believe Pokemon Sword and Shield, in terms of the amount of content it had, was just as good as any other Pokemon game in terms of it being full of content. And no Pokemon game has ever had the problem in terms of people complaining about it, of a lack of content within the game. No one has ever complained about a lack of content within a Pokemon game before. That's never been a problem. So if you've never complained about it before, I don't think you can complain about it now, because it had Pokemon Sword and Shield as the base game, in my opinion, has just as much content as any other Pokemon game has had. And in terms of like the Pokemon, obviously they're being added for free, so can't complain about that, because even if you don't buy the expansion, you'll still be able to get them. And like I said, like even the paid stuff, even the expansion stuff, we are getting at a very reasonable price. And I don't think that stuff should have been in the main game either. Like, there's a lot of people who have said that the expansion should have been part of the main game. I don't believe so, because I believe that if they were a part of the main game, even though that obviously would have been awesome and I wouldn't have complained about it, that would have been a case of, okay, you guys have like done too much. Like, you guys have gone over and above what you needed to, which is obviously something technically you would hope that they would strive for, to go above and beyond, but you can't expect any game developer to go above and beyond. That's why the phrase is above and beyond, because it's past what anybody could reasonably expect. So I just think that would have almost been too much if they had that in the game, and for how affordable it is, like, I really don't think it's a problem at all. We're kind of getting into a different argue-y type of subject matter that I really didn't want to go too much into in this podcast, because this was not meant to be an argue podcast. This was meant to be a, oh my gosh, Pokemon Sword and Shield is killing it podcast. So before I get too heated, I just basically want to say, like, I just wanted to bring up the fact that Pokemon is killing the game with all of the content that they are bringing. And this is all within, like, minus the expansions that are coming out in June and fall, so basically within the first year of Pokemon Sword and Shield's release, a little short of that, but basically the first year. The other stuff, as far as like the legendary, or not the legendary, the mythical, the events that we've gotten, the new Gigantamax forms, all of that stuff has come within the first few months of Pokemon Sword and Shield being out, which is a pretty good, like, that is a pretty good amount of content to come out within like 2 or 3 months after the games come out. And then even factoring in the expansions, you've still got like, if the second expansion, the Crown Tundra, is coming out in the fall, which is currently slated for, I don't know if you guys can hear that bird outside my window right now, but it is being loud. It is like right outside my window, and it was being really annoying. So I don't know if you guys heard that. I apologize if you did. Nature, what are you gonna do about nature? Like, you can't do anything. That's what I love about podcasts. I can just say stupid stuff like that, and it doesn't matter. Like, I could never pull off something like that in a video. It would be stupid. But in a podcast, I can do it. Anyways, what was I talking about? I was talking about the fact that in the expansions, even with Crown Tundra, the second one, coming out in the fall, that is still within the first year of Pokemon Sword and Shield being out. So all of this content I've talked about, even with the expansions coming later in the year, is coming out within the first year of Pokemon Sword and Shield being out, which is absolutely incredible. That just gives you even more room in terms of like the amount of time they have to support this game, that they could bring out even more content. Now, I wouldn't necessarily expect a whole lot more content after that, just because, like I said, that is a butt ton of stuff. And after the Crown Tundra comes out, and after the end of this year, I think they definitely will start focusing a little more towards the next game, which is most likely going to be Diamond and Pearl remakes. So after that, you probably won't see as much because their focus will start to shift slightly onto the next thing. But as long as Generation 8 is active, Pokemon Sword and Shield is going to get support. Like, whether it be like in the form of compatibility with the Diamond and Pearl remakes somehow, maybe they add more new Pokemon. Like, it's going to get some stuff after all of this stuff that we currently know about, regardless, just because we're still within Generation 8. And honestly, I think any of that stuff is just like icing on the cake. Like, it's icing on the cake, the cherry on top, because this has been an absolutely phenomenal like post-launch window for Pokemon Sword and Shield in terms of the content that they're bringing to the table, because I don't think anyone really expected them to do this, because obviously this is not a Pokemon type thing to do, and that's just because, I mean, that's not like a bad thing, it's just, once again, Pokemon is a game that is rooted in the offline single-player experience, so it's not really a game that needed to dabble in that sort of thing. It wasn't required, it wasn't obligated, but now that we're on the Switch, we are in 2020, that gives them more of an opportunity to do that, and they definitely swung for the fences in this regard. I don't think anyone, like I said, I don't think anyone was expecting this in the lead up to Pokemon Sword and Shield in terms of this amount of content post-launch and like the events and the activities and stuff. So I definitely think this is a 10 out of 10 job from Game Freak in terms of this facet of the game. I think it's awesome. I think it's great. And I am certainly looking forward to seeing what they have outside of this, because I personally can't imagine anything more than what they've already shown. The expansions, the new mythical, all of this stuff, I can't imagine them doing anything more than that, but we're so into the infancy of this game that you almost would have to expect that they would do more, just because of how little of time it's been and how like much opportunity in terms of time they have to continue doing more. So it's going to be very, very exciting. But yes, 10 out of 10, even 12 out of 10 job, Pokemon Sword and Shield, post-launch content, absolutely amazing. If you haven't got Pokemon Sword and Shield yet, which by the way, they came out with a number and said that, I want to say it was, I can't remember when it was. It was as of January, or maybe it was even December 31st, I don't know. But basically, Pokemon Sword and Shield so far has sold 16 million copies in like 2 months. Like, that's insane. That is absolutely phenomenal. So if you haven't got into the game yet, now is a great time to do it, because there's going to be a crap ton of stuff for you to do even after you beat the game. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and call it there. We're basically out of time, but that was basically all I wanted to say anyway. Really great discussion. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to follow wherever you are. Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you're listening. We appreciate you. Be sure to leave a comment if you're on YouTube as well to join into the conversation. That's a bonus of listening on YouTube. And if you are new, like I said, you can subscribe, you can follow, you can also follow us other places. You can also follow me, Hoops and Hip Hop, if you want more Pokemon content, if you're not doing that already. I have YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. Definitely appreciate it as well. And with that being said, I'll be back next Friday for more Pokemon discussion. I know you guys love it. I love it too, and I love you, so I really hope I will see you here next time. So with that being said, I'll be back next Friday. I hope you have a phenomenal weekend. And until then, as always, I'll smell you guys later.